Welcome, everyone. I'm Jennifer Klein, here with What School Could Be, and thrilled after several months of not having these kinds of sessions to be back with a group of students for a student protagonism event. These events, for those of you who don't know, are all about hearing from the voices of students. Obviously, we have a couple of educators here as well who are excited to answer questions that might come up that are more for them. But this is a wonderful group of students from the graded school in Sao Paulo, Brazil. We are joined by their head of school, Richard Borner, as well as Tracy Harrison, one of the teachers. And Tracy, can you clarify if you have other roles besides teacher?
Actually, development. I'm not a teacher.
Development, but not a teacher. Okay, my apologies. Perfect. Thank you, Tracy. Let's go ahead and start with having the students introduce themselves. A couple of them are already in college, a couple of them are still in high school, and they're really excited to share two major projects with us today. So Joao, why don't you start for us?
Sure. So my name is João. I am a sophomore at Graded, and yeah, I'm just super excited to be here.
Excellent. Nice to have you here. Thank you. Vivian.
Hello, everyone. I'm Vivian, and I'm currently a senior at Graded. And I want to thank you guys all for coming. I'm super excited also to be here and share Albie with you guys.
Excellent. Nice to have you here. Liz, are you still there? We've lost your camera. Ah, perfect. Unmute that mic. Introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Liz. I'm a college student here at Swarthmore College. I'm on my last year and I'm an engineering major, and I'm excited to share our project with you guys.
Excellent. Thank you for coming back to share all those years later. That says a lot about the pulling power of the graded school. And Felipe, please introduce yourself.
Hey guys, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm Felipe. I'm a senior at Graded, and I'm excited to tell you guys a little bit about Jaguars. And yeah.
Excellent. Wonderful. Well, you've got an audience excited and ready to hear from you. I'll mention to our participants today that you are welcome to ask questions as they're describing each project, and I'll elevate any that feels particularly urgent, but throw them into the chat. But for sure, as we finish with each of the projects, we will create some question and answer time, project by project, if that makes sense, so that you all can have a chance to ask them questions and interact with them about their learning. So we will start today with Vivian and Liz. You are on.
Perfect. I have a presentation just as a kind of visual aid. And can everybody see my screen? Perfect. So today,
yes, we can.
Liz and I are here to talk about ALBI, which is an acronym for Active Learning Buddy. So our motto is changing the world one classroom at a time. And what is ALBI? Just as a brief overview, it's an all-in-one learning management system, which is powered by generative AI and research in cognitive science. So the purpose was to integrate research-backed study methods to create a personalized and engaging learning experience, which prioritizes long-term learning outcomes over just short-term remembering of things. And just to set the scene of our story and how this came to be, this was to the backdrop of this big advent of Gen AI. So the end of 2022, there was just the rise of ChatGPT, and for, I think, everybody was kind of really weird, to say the least, and this really new technology. So a little bit about our story. To the right, we have what I call my condensed notes. And this is something that both my sister and I did while we were both in, and my sister did while she was in high school. And this is just for a chemistry class that we both took, and I think Barbosa also takes with me. And I just put this as an example because this is something that we both used to do as we were studying, and it's a part of this shared experience that led us to create Albi. So Albi started off just as an idea to create these condensed lesson summaries because it both took us super long to make. And I'm currently a student athlete, so I do show jumping on the side. While she was in high school, she also did show jumping. So we were always looking for ways to kind of optimize our time and making studying more efficient because we didn't have that much time because we were always running back and forth between training and school. And we were just we had this collective struggle of trying to optimize our time and make the time that we spent studying the most efficient possible. And when we saw ChatGPT and how powerful it was, and we compared it to our lesson summaries, we were reminded of all those like cram sessions. So she would just sit down at the kitchen table and help me with some problem that I had to test on the next day. And I think this collective struggle that we both faced pushed us to try to look towards this new generative AI to kind of solve this problem. And at the same time, Liz, while she was in college, she was kind of experiencing this very big debate in academia, which was, whether generative AI is going to take away from students' critical thinking and everything. And that's where the kind of gap that we saw that Albie needed to fill. And yeah, so once again, we're just at this tipping point within education, as all of you guys know as educators. But from the student perspective, we felt that really, really strongly. And I think generative AI was just there as a tool to really help us resolve this issue. And how Albie works, we really try to focus on the storage stage of learning. So to try to get students to remember and to retain what the teacher is explaining, because one of the big issues was that there was so much misinformation within ChatGPT that we saw that we didn't want for AI or like a chatbot to teach us. We wanted the teacher to teach us and AI to just help us learn more efficiently. So I think that's one of the main focuses of the platform and as we were thinking and developing the product. So this is kind of supposed to be a dialogue, and I think if we can actually skip the slide because we have a demo ready. And yeah, but some of the big features are AI generated lesson summaries. We have both student and teacher dashboards that are connected by Google Classroom, like a more traditional learning management system. Albie also has data and insights, and most importantly, we have a lot of recall opportunities that our platform provides to save students time so they can focus on really just studying more efficiently over spending too much time. So I'm gonna just transition really quickly. This is the student dashboard. So the teacher dashboard is almost the same, except they are in control of the course, and they have the ability to add or upload lesson slides. And from that, Albie will generate a lesson summary. So as we'll see right now, I want to study past lesson. This is something that we pre-uploaded, so we wouldn't have to waste too much time now. And yeah, so oops. And so a lesson summary should show up, and this is something that any student will have access to, which is enrolled in that course. And then the student is also able to download this file and edit it as they need. And then from this, they can take a multiple choice quiz, which Albie also provides, and grades. And if I just do this randomly, Albie also provides elaborative feedback, which is, as we were reading and researching, something that's really came up to be really prominent, as it helps students not only to understand whether or not something's right or wrong, but why it's right or wrong. And as we can see here, it should grade the quiz and explain why each thing is correct or incorrect. And that's a bit of our prototype. And then these are some of the study tool methods and tools that we implemented into our prototype. But I think one of the most important things to mention is that this project, it wasn't just my sister. It started off just as my sister and I, and the idea was initially ours, but we looked at each other. And I think this is one of the greatest things that this project has provided us, but because we had to look at each other and we understood that we weren't going to be able to create this on our own. And that's when we actually onboarded another friend of ours. He's actually only 16 and he's going to start the IB next year. So a fellow student to help. And he's actually here today. His name is Gabriel Siqueira. And so together, the three of us, we kind of put together our collective struggles, and him with his comp sci and technical knowledge, we were able to put together this prototype. And yeah, this is a little bit of Albie and what we have for now. So this is just a small demo.
Sorry, I was on mute. That was awesome. Want to make sure Vivian has a chance too to jump in. Insights, thoughts from you as well, because I know you were involved in developing this as well.
Sorry,
Or-
you cut off.
I'm sorry. I want to make sure both sisters get a chance to speak. Since it sounds like it came from both of you.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on, like, just to elaborate more on what my sister was presenting to you guys. It's a learning management system in which we will have a teacher and a student dashboard, and it's really came from the heart. I remember struggling from the IB. Both my sister and I have, and a lot of the students in the IB have this very shared struggle that we have to retain a lot of information from the past 2 years. And this was a way in which I was studying for my IB exams, but my IB exams were canceled because of the pandemic. But this was a way in which we saw a lot of students benefit, and just from our conversations. So I hope you guys liked our platform.
We absolutely loved it. You've got lots and lots of compliments already in the chat, and a few questions to asked as well. So Richard, you want to jump in?
Sure. I just wanted to add what I think is really remarkable is at the time in which Vivian and Liz were building this and designing this, we were in a deep investigation ourselves, working on deeper learning as faculty. And the idea of focusing on areas of metacognition and the idea of space practice and the strategies that they're describing, elaborative feedback, et cetera, are things we're investigating and working with our faculty on and then embedding with practice for teachers. So the fact that they were already ahead of the game just tells us how important it is that we stay current and relevant to cognitive science principles that will really advance learning, because the kids are there, they need it, and they're ready to go. And then they've been able to design through the use of AI, of course, this really special tool. So now we're working in the beginning stages with them to say, hey, all right, well, if we develop our own large language model at Graded, how can we use Albi with students in the future to really build the skill set and use their tool for the benefit of all the kids?
Excellent. I love it. Hannah had a question about when you started working on this project, what the motivation was.
Here, Liz, do you want to take that one?
Sure. We started working on this during the summer. I remember I was doing some research, like remote research from my college, but I think as I was struggling to just catch up with a lot of the information I had to learn, and my sister was kind of getting prepared for the IB exams, we kind of just both looked at each other. It's like, yeah, we do study very similarly, and how about, like, let's try to share this with everyone else. And I think it was a conversation that was like long before coming. And yeah, is there anything else you want to add, V?
No, I think that's mainly it. But yeah, I think it was a really special time, especially in the very beginning stages where it was just both of us in my room and we were just talking about it. And I think because we were sisters and during probably those first 2 weeks, we were able to have a really open dialogue because there wasn't a lot of, oh, I'm gonna hurt her feelings because she's my sister. So I think we were able to have like a really honest conversation. And I think that's been a really crucial part in this journey, even later as Gabrielle joined the team and we started working just the three of us together. I think because we were all students, our struggles are so similar that we were able to really understand and tailor the product to our struggles.
Were there ever moments where being sisters was a disadvantage? I'm just thinking about my relationship with my own sister and just curious if there were ever moments where it was a little tricky to collaborate as well.
Yeah, there were many moments where I think I kind of got more frustrated with the project because I was a little bit frustrated at my sister, but I think at the same time because we're really close, it just, like many arguments, we kind of just got over it.
Liz, you want to add to that?
Yeah, and I do think and I do think because we're sisters, we do have this additional layer of trust on one another. So I think that was very beneficial to, I think I saw in the chat, getting this product up and running so quickly, right?
Great. Dave, jump in.
Great, thank you. Thank you for this great presentation. I was, to be honest, for the first like 20 seconds, I was like, this isn't real. So I actually have a monitor above where I Googled Albi, right? And like literally it was the first thing that came up on Google. And I was just like, holy moly, this is real. Like, wow, this is fantastic. There's so many things I can say, all the same thing. But I do have a question about the entrepreneurial element of this endeavor. I mean, you guys have a great idea. Mr. Berner talked about how it's, you know, the research we have now and everything we know about how education's going, you're like nailing it, right? But I mean, there had to be some sort of drive to put together this really appealing website, easy to use with all the right widgets and all the right design buys and so forth. So, what was your kind of inspiration to take this to like this entrepreneurial level, and how did you gain the skills and knowledge to build this idea into something that really is a product?
Great questions. Who wants to take that on?
Lisa,
I
you
know
wanna
there's a
take that
lot
on?
there.
Sure, I can take it. I can answer that question. As for the entrepreneurial drive, my father was an entrepreneur, so I think as conversations sparked between me and my sister, he was always definitely one to be very encouraging. And so that was definitely one of the biggest motivations. But and that was for the entrepreneurial drive. As for the skills, I feel like we're in an age where a lot of it's on the internet and there's a lot of online courses. And especially me coming from a liberal arts education, I had a lot of exposure to several different classes. So as recently I started getting more interested into computer science, I was like, okay, this is very interesting. And that definitely sparked conversations between me and my sister and be like, oh, this is an interesting area that I think you might be interested in. And so from there, we kind of just started learning these different things and we started leveraging, oh, this is really interesting. We should use this and apply this. And I think that's kind of the motivation. And one of the ways we realized that we needed to onboard Gabriel, which has been a huge help. But I think that answers your question.
Yeah, 100%. I do. Let me just say this one last thing. We get pitched so many different products and platforms and tools and resources like all the time, right? And we have meetings with the sales folks and we check them out. And if like this is really appealing. I mean, it really like so much stuff, it just goes by the wayside, but this is actually really special. So I really am excited on how you develop this and see where it goes. So thank you.
We're really
Yeah.
happy to hear it. Thank you very much.
And is it getting a fair amount of use in other schools? Has it expanded beyond graded at this point?
At this point, we are just within graded because right now we're kind of at this weird transition stage where we want to start using different open source large language models because we want to kind of take away this dependency on ChatGPT, which for us was kind of just a main starting point to get an MVP and like a proof of concept, like, oh, this can work and I think that this is useful. But right now we're kind of putting our efforts towards making that shift. So we're at a really exciting stage right now, and we're not sure exactly how we're going to do it, but that's what we're working towards. And I think that's one of the great things about this process is just not knowing how exactly we're going to do that. But the three of us, me, Elise, and Gabriel, just trying to figure something out.
Absolutely. Well, and I think as Dave pointed out, we, educators do get bombarded with a lot of different types of tools, and this is one that seems quite useful in a lot of different ways. We've got a question too here from Hannah about, she asks, would it be fair to say you built the whole thing in 6 months, 8 months? Like how long did it take? Wanted to get a sense of just how much time it took to get it up and moving. It sounds like it's continuing to evolve though too.
I think it probably took us around 8 months, but because the three of us are students, our schedules are kind of like, it wasn't like 8 months of like full time. It was like, oh, like right now I'm in my mocks. Gabriel is also in his mocks. But then next week we're going to be a little bit more chill. And I think it's kind of those 8 months working a lot at some periods of time and a little bit less at others.
Nice. Josh, you had a question about the elaborative feedback and then also a lovely comment about your own trying to build a chicken coop with your brother that might be worth sharing with the students if they haven't seen it. Please.
Yeah, my mother had to step in and break up several fights, but we got the chicken coop built. That was 50 years ago. I would love to know more about elaborative feedback. I wonder if you can fill in a little bit about what sorts of feedback is provided as you're working through a learning module and how that feedback can be helpful in terms of both learning and deeper learning, learning that sticks, learning that has a reality to it.
So the idea for the elaborative feedback actually came after I read Dr. Pooja Agarwal's powerful teaching, and where she discussed this question about elaborative feedback and how it's explaining, not like understanding not whether or not it's right or wrong, but why it's right or wrong. And I think especially when I was working with multiple choice, and I think this is something that I felt while working like through IB packets where they had the mark scheme, and the mark scheme only explained what was the correct answer, but I didn't really, sometimes when I was lost, I didn't understand why or not it was correct. So that feedback wasn't the most helpful. And I think just having having the platform explain why it is or not correct, for me, in my personal experience, was really helpful. And I found it really cool that I was actually backed up by Dr. Pooja in her book. So that's kind of where this inspiration came from.
I love it.
Love the idea. Love the
Sorry,
idea
Kat.
that the driving question was, what is helpful feedback in what context? That's terrific driving question. Awesome.
Thank you.
That's great. Well, and I love this image of students reading educational theory to try to build tools that make education work better. I mean, that all by itself, that's just a perfect bow on this. This is great. Any other questions from the group on this particular project? Really wonderful work, both of you. It's just a great, great concept, and we'll probably have a few more time for a few more questions for you all when we get to the end of the time as well. I think it would be a good moment to transition, if that sounds good to everybody, to Felipe and Joao. I know I'm still not getting that quite right. To share about your project work, and a shout out, of course, before you start, to Gabrielle, who is here but not visible, who apparently was really, really core to this last one. So thank you for being here. And if you want to jump in at any point, please feel free. Let's go ahead and get started with the second project.
Hi, so I'm going to share my screen because we also have a slideshow just to illustrate some of the ideas. Does this work? Like, is this working well? Can you all see?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. So, Felipe, do you want to start us off?
So we have this really dramatic opening page where it's like Bushman, AI for Brazil. But I think it's important for us to have some like context and give you guys some context on how this project started. So could you go to the next slide, please?
Yes.
Okay. Hold on, I think you skipped. Yeah, all right. So João and I traveled to this place. Brazil is a huge country, and Brazil has this one biome called the Pantanal. It's almost like the Everglades, like on steroids. They're huge. It's full of like wildlife. It's full of jaguars. It's full of like caiman. It's full of like alligators. And I think, in my opinion, it's the most beautiful place on earth. And we went there to see jaguars, which are those two animals here. The photo on the left is actually one I took with this project called On Safari, which is the biggest jaguar conservation NGO in Brazil and probably in South America too. And as someone who loves biology, I was in love with this. And João, who just loves nature in general, just every animal he saw, he would just like go crazy and take pictures and all this. So On Safari, being this huge NGO, sort of has as its mission two things. One, save jaguars and now maned wolves, but also change the Brazilian the Brazilian economy from primary goods as like coffee, iron, and stuff that Brazil like produces, which isn't as sustainable, doesn't make as much money, into ecotourism, because we make so much money and we have the Amazon. We have so many animals, and there's the Amazon here, but Brazil never really capitalizes on that. So On Safari's idea is this: we could just have these safaris where they'll see jaguars, and you can see here the jaguar on the right has a little like necklace, which is a tracking necklace that was put on it by On Safari. And we'll use all this revenue that we get from on Safari, that we get from these safaris in order to put it back into the Jaguars, right? And saving them. And that's awesome. Joan and I fell in love with that, and we thought it was really cool. But on Safari has one huge problem. Since they're so big, they have 11 bases all throughout Brazil, and they have these little cameras that they put on trees called camera traps, right? And what are camera traps? Camera traps are these things, these on the left and on the right, and here on the right you can see a map full of camera traps. That's how many camera traps they have on each base, and they have 11 bases. So this is like I'm estimating like 80 cameras per base times 11. That's 800 cameras. That's a lot, right? And each of these cameras every year, every month, because they have these campaigns where they record videos and get and look at animals, record on average 1,000 videos a month. So really quickly, this math starts getting out of hand, right? And someone has to watch all of these because we need to know where jaguars are, where jaguars are, where ocelots are, and where tapirs are, because we need to map their locations. We need to know where they are. And most of the videos, you know, if you go there, most of the videos look like that. My bad. Most of the videos look like that. They're awesome. Like there's like this jaguar pack, they're together, look really, really cute. But if you go to the next slide, most of them, like that's a small minority. Most of them actually, if this slows, that'd be most of them actually look like this, which are ghost videos. They have nothing, right? And it's really frustrating for everyone who works on Safari because, like, dude, come on. Like, I'm sifting through millions of videos. We're spending like tens of thousands of man hours every like year doing this. Like, come on, like this sucks. And so João and I, who did a summer program, like an AI summer program, over COVID, it was really sort of like ish. Like we watched YouTube videos mostly to get through it. We were like, all right, we could. João, do you want to explain this part?
Yeah. So basically, we thought, like, we heard about the problem. We talked to the biologist there, and we thought, wow, right? This is like probably one of the best things that we can do with our time. So after we left the Pantanal, we emailed their head biologist and everyone there. I think like over 20 different emails. We're like, guys, we have this genius idea. You have to hear us out. And then we're basically begging for them to send us videos of these animals so that we can make an AI model to help them. But who are we, right? We were basically two kids who went as one of their customers, and we're basically pitching a solution, like the solution, to the problem that they've been having for 11 years. It's like they have millions of, had to watch every single one of them. A good way to do it. What's up? Is not a good way to do it. That's kind of an interesting experience, right? So as soon as we got home, right, we pitched it to them there. And as soon as we got home, we basically spent hours coding the AI model like by ourselves, right? So we like had to code each individual layer. We needed to do a bunch of math, a bunch of research, and we basically ended up getting something that ended up working. Felipe, do you want to go on?
Yeah, all right. So we got something that sort of worked.
I think it was like 80. Okay.
Can you hear?
Anyway.
Can you guys see? Yeah, all right. It was like 86% accurate. It was cool. So we sort of showed it to them and like, guys, we can actually do this. Like this works. I promise we're not just talking. We can actually do this. And they're like, all right, if you guys can do this, we'll send you here a hard drive full of videos. And we open this video, and I think this is the photo on the left where there's like, it's counting. These are each, this is each a frame that we had to like make training, we had to train on. So we went from a problem of having 500 videos, which was good. It was like, we had enough stuff, but it was like it was too little to make an actual like full scale project, to having arguably the largest like data of Brazilian fauna in the world. And João and I sort of had to take a step back and we're like, dude, we can't do this. Like, this is too much for us. At least our computers can run. Like our computers were telling us that. Like we'd put the hard drive in our computer and be like, dude, run, come on, please. And our computer would just turn off. and we're like, man, what can we do, right?
Because in theory, you can basically just so in theory, if you have a good enough computer, you can basically just have this code and you just put a billion videos. But when I tried to do that on my computer, which arguably is a pretty good computer, it would turn off, it would start smoking, and my screen would become green, which I didn't even know was possible. So as soon as we did that, we basically had to come up with a way to make it work, not on our computers. And with that came a bunch of research into like cloud computing and all that. And we ended up transferring, I think, to AWS, like all these videos, which took hours, as you can see here. And no, it took days, right? It took like Felipe needed to keep his computer open, I think for like a week straight. Like if he closed it, like things would go really badly. So we ended up doing that, but we could not make AWS work. I don't know. We just didn't understand it. It was really complicated. And it's essentially like by chance, we were having weekly meetings with On Safari, like giving them updates on our project. And in one of those meetings, just randomly, this guy called Hafa from who worked at Google said he showed up as he like was super interested in the project, just like we had. And he basically had the same idea that we had to basically revolutionize the way that On Safari does their work. Right? Philippe, do you want to go on?
Yeah, so he sort of saw our project and he was like, I had something in mind that was pretty similar to this. Instead of working by myself and with like my friends at Google, I'll help you guys do this, right? And I mean, he started working with us. We migrated over to Google Cloud, and we started actually working on the project and looking at like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of videos. And Joe, if you go to the next slide, like there's photos of us working, and so no, go back. It's a little early to show it.
No, this one. This one.
Jean sort of jumping all over the place, but I'll explain. So this is so after a few weeks of like us talking to each other, going on meeting. That's good. Hafa from Google was like, all right, a good idea for us is for you guys to read this book. He gave us this book. It's called The Sprint, which is almost like a consulting guide on how to like solve problems for like solve On Safari's problems, solve a company's problems. And we went to the Pantanal for a week and worked with them, making this like sort of restructuring everything and seeing how our project would work in their whole like On Safari ecosystem. Because obviously like our project, our AI would be a very strong like pump. This is how I always describe it to anyone who asks me. It's almost like you have the super duper strong pump, but all the wiring around it is super weak, and it can't handle all the pipes around it are super weak, and it can't handle all the water going through. So going on Safari was almost like us understanding that, all right, well, if we give them this AI, like do they have the resources to use it effectively, or do we need to do more? And this is what we sort of had to see, like sort of take a step back and be like, all right, we have to work on their whole like end-to-end video processing like work and how they handle it. And this is if you go to the next slide, it's a photo of the whole team. Yeah, it's a photo of the whole team. Hafa is the guy in the tan shirt. Mario here on the right is the founder of On Safari. And yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, that's me. John, do you want to explain the results then, which are on the next slide?
Yeah, so basically after we spent hours figuring like coding, like with I think over like hundreds of thousands of lines of code, unfortunately, we basically got to a result that ended up working very well, right? As you can see here, it predicted almost everything with over 90% accuracy, right? It predicted videos of jaguars with 93%, videos of others with 97, so videos that don't fall into these categories. And with that, we basically had a problem. These results are very good, right? But why can't they be better? Because if you have a human who watches all the videos, even though it does spend a ton of hours, right? Every month, they'll spend almost 2 out of the 4 weeks of the month watching these videos all day. 85%, to be honest, is good, but it's not great, right? 93% also, it's good, but not great. So we needed to basically go back to the chalkboard and figure out how can we improve this. And the solution that we actually came up with is the fact that we don't need one model to watch all the videos, right? We don't need one model to see whether it's like whether if there even is an animal or not. So what we basically ended up doing is, with the help of tons of Google engineers, is we basically made one model that would detect whether or not there was an animal in the video or not, which would essentially eliminate 80% of the videos. And then we make a more specified model that would basically classify these animals, which are the other 99% of the videos. So what that ended up causing, right? So wait, let me explain. There's a picture. Yeah. So this is basically the result of one of our models, which, given the video, it basically knows where and when in the video there is an animal. And what we do basically is we crop the frame to this, like they're just the box from this animal. And then we give it to another model, which is very specified and knows exactly what animals are in the picture based on these boxes.
You mind if I jump in really quick, Joe? So this first model actually was made by Microsoft. It's called the mega detector. So it sort of does object detection and figures out where the animal is. And our model, which is the Bushman AI model, is made for Brazilian fauna, which is something that like none of the other like animal detection or species detection models have, because simply no one really cares about Brazilian fauna as much as I think they should. So Bushman, that's why it said, oh, AI made for Brazil, because this is the first model that sort of looks at this and specialized towards Brazilian fauna. And we have a few examples of our thing working. We can, unfortunately, we don't have like a working thing to show you, but we can, because sort of different things were off. We were like working.
So also in addition, right, because we had like so much AI baked into everything, we did need a bunch of data. And they also had a problem where they could not manage their like the actual motion detector cameras. So we ended up making them an app which would feed data into our model. So I basically have like an example set up here to show you guys how it worked, where basically people from Safari could log in with their accounts, right? So you log in, and it of course doesn't let you log in if you're not in Safari, because we don't want random people, uploading videos. And what this basically does is they plug in the SD cards from the cameras, and it basically allows them to. So once they put the footage in this app, they click enviar, which is upload in Portuguese. It runs through a whole pipeline that feeds into the AI, and it basically ends up in here. And this is basically a database solution that we made them, where we like edited to make it work for them, where the animals are basically automatically classified. So for example, if you go in here, let me see. So we can open this video, taking a bit of time, but here. So we can open this video and we can see that it knows that the video is an onça, which is a jaguar, and that there's a vehicle, there's an animal, people, and it's not a ghost video, right? So that is all auto, and it does that with the models that we made and modified. So like in this video, right? Of course, like there actually is an animal, and like that result for us is like super important and super impactful. Philippe?
Oh yeah, so I think that's it. That's our Bushman AI model. We had a few other photos, but it basically just cross-references everything with the app. Make sure that, am I muted?
No, you're good, Felipe. We've just got a little bit of a delay on Joao's, and I think it's because he's the one sharing the slides. That's my guess anyway. You want to show a couple more of the examples?
I think that's good. But it'll look at the camera. It'll look at the exact camera. If you go back to the uploader document, like you'll see what SD card that was in, and it cross checks with the app to see what camera that was in and where the camera was during those dates. So, and then we have a full sort of like file of where that video was, which they didn't have before. So it's really good for their like archival purposes. And maybe in the future, like some wildlife expert can ask on Safari, like, hey guys, I really need your help on X and X, like ocelots or whatever. And they can find exactly when each ocelot video was recorded, when they are, like where they are at, and like population densities and all this stuff. So yeah, that's our Bushman AI model for you guys.
This is wonderful. Thank you for sharing this. I think it might be helpful to turn off the sharing for a moment so that we can, I mean, we'd love to see more pictures, but I want to make sure that both of you
Yeah.
can hear us and we get some fluidity in terms of the connection there. So we've got a couple questions already coming up in the chat. First of all, lots and lots of compliments about persistence and problem solving. Hannah had a question, and she started by saying, I love how you talked about how you got way more out of your own research and using YouTube than some formal AI coursework. And she asked, can you speak to what types of videos you watched and how you approached the learning process?
I think Jean can answer this because he was the one that did most of the AI research.
Yeah, so to be fair, most of like the actual coding happened, like most of the actual coding and research went on between the hours of midnight and 5 a.m. on school days, which is not great, but honestly, it's what it took. And from that, right, I ended up learning a bunch of concepts, a bunch of the math behind AI. And because honestly, right, I did program like me and Felipe, we did program the AI ourselves, right? Now with Google's cloud and all that, we can basically like just press a button and it trains the model. And of course, there's a lot of coding, but from having to watch the videos, or else like if we didn't watch the videos and if we didn't actually understand how it worked, we wouldn't have a solution. So in like reading a ton of research papers, watching a ton of YouTube videos, reading a ton of documentation, having to edit tons of lines of code, which is a very frustrating process, we essentially got something that we're super happy with.
That's wonderful. Josh, I know you wanted to ask a question about solutionary mindset. Is that what you raised your hand for?
Yes, please.
Yes, and yeah, go
So
for it.
yes, and all right. First, I'm not often speechless, but I think this one has kind of left me speechless. So great work, you two. I think as you identified the problem, you went deep into the weeds of how you worked your way through the problem and how you came to a solution. I think at the very end, you provided me with a hint to the answer to the question that I'm about to ask, which is, I think you realized through the login process that you had to protect the data in some way because that data in the wrong hands could turn out to be a disaster, right? Where these jaguars are located and so on and so forth. So I wonder if you can speak a little bit to the idea that you were sort of in a 360 fashion, moving around and examining this whole thing and making sure that you weren't producing a solution that could end up being a disaster for the jaguar.
So I think I'll answer this. So I think what you're referencing is probably like hunters and people who like want to kill jaguars.
Correct. Yes.
All right.
Correct. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So I think at first what we have right now is we're making this 4 on Safari, right? And like we're really like trusting, like obviously like on Safari is an NGO, like they're for this. But a distant idea that I had in the beginning with Drone when we were first like thinking this through when we were on Safari is, dude, this would be great like to actually make in to make open source and so everyone could actually use this, right? But as Jean and I sort of thought this through, we're like, this is oddly hyper specific for on Safari, 1, and 2, if any hunter got his hands on this, like it's over. Like jaguars are like we're basically creating like the Lockheed Martin for jaguars, right? Which isn't what we want to do.
Right.
So like right now our idea and what we're thinking about right now is just making this 4 on Safari. And I think that's all I can tell you because we really haven't thought that far about making this public or like the sort of broader implications of this because we're really trying to just pump this out for on Safari.
I think that's great. I think what you've done is decided that there's a limit and that you want to just stay at that limit for the moment, which is only make it available to the Safari itself. So that's just fascinating. I think your brother wants to jump in as well.
Yeah. So also like in addition to like this getting into the hands of the wrong people, as you said, there is like it could have been like in theory, right? A disaster could have happened because the scientists at On Safari basically live, breathe, like and dream about jaguars, right? So for them, their research is super important. and they have tons of like hard drives with tons of like content and footage like of the last like decade of their life, right? So if we ended up making a platform that was online and if something went wrong, would they lose the last decade of the research, the last decade of like possibly like the biggest storage of Brazilian fauna in the world, right? So we actually did need to like be super conscious like in addition to making it for on Safari, making it so that like it was secure and we were like double checking that everything was safe, that we wouldn't ever lose any data. So even videos that for example get flagged as not having any animals, that still gets saved, right? And if they want to delete it, then they can delete it. But nothing like they never lose data. We never mark data that we are unsure of as something if we don't know. So there's like both sides of that question, right?
Yep. Beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I love this. And you may have already answered Richard's question to some degree, but Richard, did you want to jump in with that question about what comes next?
Well, you know, I had assumed that your focus was exactly as you described. That really, in your heart, this whole effort was about an organization and helping them optimize a really labor's experience, and adding an advantage in which, you know, you're going to help save potentially a species, or multiple species, or at least embolden their chances of survival. I could imagine other organizations who have relationship to On Safari are going to want to talk to you about how you can help them. It doesn't mean it has to be public ever, but how many organizations privately could aid from a tool as powerful as yours? And so I'm curious, have you been contacted? You don't have to tell any names or anything like that, but have you been contacted, and are you curious about utilizing this you know, service to other groups?
I don't think like we haven't been contacted like officially. We had people like tell us, dude, this would be sick if we could use this. But you know, more than that, we're just sort of like we just want to like hone in, finish this on Safari thing because there's so much like end to end that we still have to work on. But you know, ideally, this model is easy to like implement in any other sort of like open like front end drive thing like resource space that we like Jean showed you guys. So as many people want to use it, like we'd love to make it available to them as long as you know, they care about animals. They're not trying to like kill them.
Well, Felipe, it is sick, and I do think a lot of organizations would love to have you partnering with them.
Having just finally watched Oppenheimer this week, that question of like, you know, creating something intended for good that ends up not serving good is really great. And I think that kind of level of critical thinking too is so essential. Dave, you had your hand up. I wasn't ignoring it. I apologize. It took me a minute to get to you. Please jump in.
No, actually, Rich asked my question, so thank you.
Okay, perfect. You've got tons and tons of compliments here in the chat. I don't know that the students are tracking all of what's being said in the chat, but folks are just loving this. Lots and lots of hearts and, you know, smiley faces and all sorts of things like that too. Let's get some other questions, for both of the projects. Any I want to ask a big picture question, and I hinted at this earlier. I'm curious about what the challenges have been when it comes to those constant moments of needing to improve something that's not working quite right, and the collaboration, you know, what have been the moments of challenge, and what are, you know, is there advice you can give to other students or to teachers who have students who are struggling to collaborate through the challenges when they arise? And this can be for any of the four of you, or all of the four of you.
When we were actually working on developing the main pipeline, so what creates the lesson summaries and the multiple choice quizzes, one of the biggest issues we face is the fact that ChatGPT was also evolving at the same rate that we were trying to work with it. So every time a new model came out, we had to kind of adapt and change what we were doing. And then at one point, I think it was the end of last year, the pipeline just stopped working because ChatGPT just kind of stopped working really well. And because we asked it to generate a part of a script, and then it just started using the wrong syntax. And then at that point, we just didn't know what to do because it wasn't working, and that was our main like thing. And I think it was a really interesting experience just having to work through and work around all these issues. So at some point we had to split up because it runs off a concept list, the lesson summaries. And before it used to run concept by concept, but then because of the token limit in GPT, we had to change it to run through run fully. And I think it was really frustrating. It still is frustrating sometimes because a lot of technology, it still sometimes just doesn't work. But I think just continuing to work through it, I think is the best, is what we did. And I think it's the only way you can really go about it.
Great. Thank you, Vivian. Anyone else want to jump in on that question? And then we have another that's been elevated in the chat.
I mean, for Joan and I, like ours is a little less serious than Vivi's because Vivi's is awesome, like it's great. Jones and I are like way more unprofessional. It's because like we're brothers, and Vivi and Liz have the like luxury of living in like different places. Joan and I like live a door in front of each other, and we work on like opposite like clocks. Like I'm up in the morning, Joan is not up in the morning. So when I'm working, he's not working, and when he's working, I'm not working. So it's like, yes, it helps us like have constant progress, but at the same time, it's really annoying. Like, I'll be honest, like I love my brother, but it's like it's every day. He's like, "Oh, dude, come on, let's work on this now." I'm like, "Dog, I'm trying to go to bed, dude. Not now."
Yeah, different clocks, right? Different biorhythms.
I just want to add that, right? So like there have been times, unfortunately, that he's been like taking a shower, and I was yelling through his door about like some programming question, about like some issue that we're having, like telling him to work. So, having like working with a brother is like takes up a lot of time, takes up a lot of stress, lots of discussions, lots of arguments. But overall, I like we get to spend more time together, right? He's going off to college. And like honestly, I'd much rather be having debates with him about what programming language to use for each part of the process than to just like be watching Netflix in my room with him doing his own thing in his room.
I love it. I love it. Richard, I'm going to come to you in 1 second here because we had a question elevated in the chat about how much of this did for the boys here, how much of, or men, young men, pardon me, how much did you guys code it and how much did the Google engineers help, as you would define it?
I'll answer this. Jean and I sort of split the coding. Like he did 60, I did 40, because I was really sort of focused on like idea iteration. And Hafa, who was our Google mentor, basically was just that, a mentor. Like he's been super helpful, but he's almost like a product manager. He's been like sort of helping us architect things through, and he's like, guys, let's get to work. Come on. He's like he helps us make stuff. He like pushes us forward, and he's like, guys, enough complaining, let's get to work, right? So he's really helped us like mature up and actually start doing things. And since we're using Google Cloud and he works with Google Cloud, it's been much easier to figure stuff out than just us sort of like being lost and watching YouTube videos. We could just like text our group chat 11 at night, and we're like, dude, we don't know how to do this, and he'll like come and save the day.
And I think that one of like the best parts about this all is the fact that me and like Felipe and I have coded basically everything, because one of the actual concerns is anything that he programs is property of Google. And if we ever wanted to open this up, send it to other people, that would be a limitation. So basically what we ended up doing is that Felipe and I basically coded almost everything. And I think that made us learn a lot more about how it worked, about different technologies. So that was super beneficial also, because he took the role of a mentor and not necessarily just like a coworker.
Very nice. Very nice. Richard.
Well, Josh knows well my opinions and frustrations with our educational model. And it's funny how education in our classroom, which we love and treasure so much, is getting in the way of your amazing project. And I say that with a little bit of tongue in cheek, but also with a reality that what you have learned here, you never could have got in any of the classes that we offer you. And we think we offer wonderful experiences, but What you did on your own is truly remarkable. And Liz, I was thinking, I was doom scrolling one night on Instagram, and I came across a student from Wellesley, and she was describing some deeper learning strategies that she teaches in the tutoring program they have for kids at the school. And she was providing a description of a strategy space practice, which obviously you guys highlight as well, and we talk about at school. And I was thinking about, while the K-12 experience still needs a lot of reforming, college needs a much greater level of reforming. And your efforts and work that you've been designing, I think, has even greater relevance and importance in how to make the college experience more valuable and effective and deepen learning rather than the roteness of which I know you've experienced at Swarthmore, even though it's a wonderful school. And so I just want to push you in that direction.
Sorry, I forgot I unmuted because I'm on an arterial road between hospital and firehouse, right? So I get all the sirens. Really great point, Richard. And it connects to Josh's question too about the role of teachers in these projects. Was there a role for teachers from the graded school within this project? Did they have a part in either of these projects? Did they have a part in them?
Yeah, I think in the very beginning when we started developing Algae, I think I talked a lot to actually Mr. Neal, he's right here in the Zoom meeting, just spitballing ideas with him, and also our chemistry teacher, Mr. Fox, because I think the main idea for the lesson summaries actually came from his class, which me, Felipe, and Liz, we all take or took. And I think being able to have this dialogue with them about, and getting their feedback, it was really great, and I think it was a really important part of the process. And also in the beginning, when Albi was still just an idea, when we pitched it to Mr. Borner and some people in the deeper learning, in the deeper learning lab, they had such great feedback, and I think that was really important in like kind of guiding us where to take our next steps.
Very nice. Any answer from our pair of brothers as well?
Yeah. So honestly, this mostly happened outside of school, but there were a couple teachers that like did help us with like, because of course, like this is such a big project. We've had tons of iterations, tons of things that worked, tons of things that didn't work. So like we've talked to teachers like Mr. Pate, Mr. Griswold, Hudson, and like just bounce ideas back and forth. But I think that like we didn't get to collaborate too much with teachers on this, which is kind of unfortunate.
Yeah, it's a good message for all the educators here or watching this video as well, right? That this kind of authentic work can happen in and through the classroom as well, right? It shouldn't always have to be outside of school. This has been amazing. I want to make sure I give Mel a chance quickly to mention a few things that she's dropped into the chat in terms of upcoming events, and then we will say thank you and close out. Mel?
Thanks, Jennifer. We'd love to invite you to our next ION Student Protagonism. It's with Junior Changemakers. Those are middle school students from Frankfurt International School. They'll be talking about Day H, which is their 8-day schedule and the kind of passion projects they get to do during that schedule during their school day. And if you're not already a member in What School Could Be, our community, there's a link in the chat for you to join us as well. And we'd love for you to be a part of it.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mel. Thank you to our students. This has been extraordinary. Thank you to Richard and Tracy for all the coordination in the background. Feel free to unmic or unmute so that they can actually hear you clapping there in the background. That was amazing.
Incredible.
Really amazing.
I love it. Get all those echoes in there, but it was important for you all to know just how well folks were responding to your ideas, to your innovation, to the way that you're seeking out what the problem is, as well as coming up with a variety of ways to solve it and taking that 360-degree, multiple angles, what's working, what's not, what do we need to shift. Both of these projects were just extraordinary. So thank you to everyone for being here. I know we lost a few participants at the late hour, but really it's been a thrill. Thank you all on behalf of What School Could Be for coming and listening to this wonderful group of students. And just a reminder, this is what these events are all about, right? Is making sure that when we're talking about education and thinking about what good practice looks like, that we're also hearing from students, not just from other educators. So thank you all so much for your time this evening, and have a wonderful rest of your week.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you so much
Thank you,
for having
Jennifer. Thanks, Mel. Thank you so much. Great to see you, Josh.